Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second session of MMC Tuesdays. For those of you just joining us today, my name is Vasuki Rao, and I will be your host and MC. So, without wasting any time, I would like to bring on our first speaker for today, who is the founder and executive chairman of Commerce.Asia, Ganesh Bangah. Ganesh was the Ernst & Young Technology Entrepreneur of the Year in Malaysia for 2012 and one of Asia's most influential people according to Society magazine 2015. He was also recognized as one of the Southeast Asia's top 30 tech founders by Tech in Asia in 2016 and was recognized as one of the most inspiring Malaysian technology entrepreneurs by top 10 of Malaysia. So Ganesh founded Commerce.Asia in 2017, and within 3 years, he has grown the company to have a database of over 8 million SMEs across 7 countries. Today, he will be presenting on growth trends, specifically how live commerce is transforming influencer marketing. So Ganesh, off to you whenever you're ready.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ganesh Bangah. I'm the executive chairman of Commerce.Asia. Today, I'll be talking a bit about the growth trends of how live commerce is actually transforming influencer marketing. Influencer marketing over the last few years has really been a booming industry. If you look over the last 5 to 10 years, influencer marketing will grow actually to be worth 5 to 10 billion by 2020. It was only worth 500 million back in 2015. That's a 10 times growth, a 5 to 10 times growth over 10 years. In other words, influencer marketing is looking at doubling every year globally over a 10-year period that we are in. Now, if you look in the Malaysian context, social actually captured 1/3 of total digital ADEX. It actually is the largest growing component of digital ADEX. It actually grew 15% between last year and this year, while most of the other platforms actually shrunk except for video. So in other words, social is actually eating the ADEX from the other components of digital. So a lot of people have been saying that influencer marketing is actually the next big thing for marketers after Google and Facebook. And let's see why we think the same as well. Now, why influencer marketing works? 83% of consumers actually say they trust recommendations from friends and family over advertising. Influencer marketing is actually as close as you can get for brands to get recommendations from people close to consumers or that have relationships with consumers. And it's the only way for you to basically pay or advertise to actually get recommendations, while still, and with that, while still actually retaining creative control over the message and audience. Influencer marketing actually integrates the products of brands into the influencer lives that actually get their followers to see how the products actually used by the influencers and seek inspiration from the influencers basically. And because of this actually attributes an increase of consideration and purchase intent for the consumer, which is actually the final stage of purchase. So in other words, influencer marketing can actually influence a consumer and keep them remembering how those products influence the lives of their influencer who they respect and help them get through that final stage or path to purchase. However, one of the issues that marketers find with influencer marketing as compared to other digital methods of marketing, for example, Facebook and Google, is that today there isn't an efficient or effective way to calculate return on ad spend. In other words, when in Facebook and Google, you can calculate $1 of ad spend equals to how many dollars of revenue. Today, for influencer marketing, that's not there yet. So the return on ad spend is not there for influencer marketing. And this towards is actually the biggest hindrance to the growth of influencer marketing today. So is influencer marketing effective? Let's see. Now, in net-centric, a company listed on the ASX, which is the end-to-end growth ecosystem that I own, we actually have agencies and brands that cover every stage of the growth funnel, from awareness right down to revenue. From awareness, we have our influencer marketing platform, Nafnang. We have a video marketing platform, Reality TV. We even have a PR and events management platform called Crunch, which is digitally enabled, of course. For acquisition, we have our digital marketing agency, Sashimi, right down to activation, to retention as well through our different agencies. And today we have recently launched, actually in the last couple of months, our live commerce platform, which actually brings the awareness level, the consumers from awareness right down to revenue, giving hopefully an effective return on ad spend to brands and advertisers that work with us. Commerce.Asia is the other ecosystem. It's basically an e-commerce ecosystem that is owned by us as well. So Commerce.Asia basically has the end-to-end ecosystem which handles the other end of the product spectrum, where net-centric handles marketing from awareness to revenue. Commerce.Asia takes the revenue to fulfillment. In other words, from when somebody clicks purchase from the website or from the marketplace, we then have the ecosystem to actually deliver on that purchase, where we cover everything from marketplace integration or marketplace listing to inventory management, right down to fulfillment as well. We've actually been awarded the best e-commerce consulting services company in APAC for 2020, and we have our managed services outfit called Commerce.Asia Enterprise that actually helps brands handle their whole end-to-end e-commerce experience, from fulfillment right down to performance marketing. So Nafnang Live is a joint venture between Commerce.Asia and NetCentric. It's basically a live video commerce enabler for brands looking to expand their e-commerce business. It integrates our influencer content and e-commerce know-hows, where we provide end-to-end live video commerce solutions from production right down to fulfillment, leveraging on the assets within the NetCentric and Commerce.Asia ecosystem. This allows our clients, and this allows us to give our clients a direct impact on measuring conversions. Now, what is live commerce? Live commerce combines live video streaming with the ability for online shoppers to interact with sellers and to buy immediately. So in other words, when you see something on Facebook, you like it, our influencers basically sell it on Facebook, you like it, you can then buy it, and we basically then have our infrastructure to automatically deliver that to you. So live commerce is actually seen as a much more enriching online shopping experience than traditional e-commerce, because it's video based and it's actually more pushed to the consumer. So consumers see it when they want to buy, rather than the traditional market, before they want to buy, rather than the traditional marketplaces where consumers actually want to buy something and go to the marketplace to buy. Now, live commerce is huge in China, and China is kind of at the forefront of live commerce worldwide. Now, what can we learn from the China experience? Now, live commerce actually accounted for almost 9% of e-commerce sales in China in 2019, which equates to about 263 billion ringgit of live commerce transactions that happened in China last year. Now, personalities are important when in live commerce for both relevance and trustability. In other words, the influence of the personality is key, and the host has to be well trained and conducts an immersive experience. We call it entertainment. It's not just about selling something, it's about entertaining the consumer so that they trust you and they like what they see and they buy from the host. Now, shopping on live streaming is a short window of purchase. In other words, it's about driving urgency and spontaneity. The in-moment shopping experience, it's addictive. You want it, then you can get it and it's delivered to you then. You need to have the best deals, deep discounts, and range of rewards. And of course, commendable production value will actually foster trustworthiness with potential shoppers. In other words, the better the production, the more trustworthy the consumers will be with your brand, and the more confident they are to purchase from you. It's convenience, another important aspect. From ease of ordering during a live show to the speed of receiving the order is key in generating a successful live commerce experience. Now, we did a pilot project for a small SME in Puchong. It was actually a bakery shop, and we matched the influencer's personality with their live commerce needs. We grew by launching this one. When we first launched this, we actually managed to grow the Facebook fan page of the bakery shop to 4,000 likes from 3,000 likes before that session. In other words, it grew actually 30% within a week after the live premiere. During the live commerce session, we reached 250 viewers, and this is basically just for small bakery shop. With bigger brands, we expect to actually generate, or we have generated actually even better results. Now, after we actually worked with the bakery shop, they were able to run the live commerce independently after 2 sessions. And when we launched this, they actually generated 8,000 ringgit in sales within 30 minutes. Now, how does the shopper's journey flow work when somebody purchases over live commerce? Well, first, basically, you would watch the show live. When you want to buy something, a purchase code is flashed. So if you see on the screen, you see a +1, comment +1. So you basically type in +1 where you message in the comment screen. And consumers today on Facebook are very familiar that when they want to buy something, if they want to buy 1, they press +1. If they want to buy 2 units, they press +2. So they basically comment +1 if they want to buy 1 item. Now, over Messenger, we basically track that. So our systems are automated to track that. And we then send a message to them with the order number, as well as the link that allows them to make payment. And subsequent to that, it then links to our backend infrastructure, and we basically then pick, pack, and deliver the particular item that consumers have purchased. Now, our backend technology basically handles this end-to-end and automated with an AI-enabled technology that basically supports that. And we provide a platform, a dashboard basically to our brands to actually see the orders and who purchased the orders. Now, data is collected, and this basically enables brands and merchants to develop in-house customer database and insights. Now, is influencer marketing effective? Of course, we can't say that it's fully effective because ROAS, or giving an ROAS number back to brands, is still not there yet, or it's not fully enabled yet, but it isn't ineffective either. Now, combined with, it's just the current measurement of ROAS that is incomplete today. But combined with live commerce, we can actually measure effective conversions while actually increasing engagement with consumers as well. So with that, influencer marketing will be able to provide a more holistic ROAS, or return on ad spend data, from impressions right down to conversions, from awareness right down to revenue. That's all. Thank you. Let's go live.
Thank you, Ganesh. And to our viewers, just a reminder for those of you who have just tuned in, feel free to ask questions to the presenting speakers using the comment section. Now we'll be taking a 5-minute screen break, so go grab a drink and some snacks, because when we come back, we'll be starting with the much awaited panel discussion on removing the stumbling blocks. So I'll see you in 5. Welcome back, everyone. It's now time for the first panel discussion of this year's conference. And moderating the panel today is Chief Strategist of Edelman Malaysia, Sailesh Wadhwa. For those of you who don't know Sailesh, he is currently in his fourth consecutive agency turnaround, and he spent the last 20 years across multiple geographical locations, including Kuala Lumpur, Colombo, Mumbai, and New Delhi. And he's been working across brand consulting and advertising agency business operations. One of the things I'd like to highlight is that Sailesh has actually earned the distinction of bringing home Asia's first global Effie, and he also served as a jury at several local, regional, and international awards since 2013. With all that said, it is a true pleasure of mine to bring on Sailesh to introduce our panelists and start the panel discussion.
Thank you for joining us. We are going to have an amazing and exciting panel this morning. We've got a line of speakers, panelists who bring a lot of industry perspective from different angles. One thing I can assure you, as the topic says, that we are planning to remove hurdles and roadblocks. Is not going to be a counseling session. At the same time, it's not going to be like a presidential debate, because all our panelists are very presidential in their ways. No mute buttons here, but we're going to have a good sparring around the kind of challenges that our industry is facing, given the unprecedented situation that we are all facing today across businesses, irrespective of whether you are a brand, a client, a media owner, or an agency partner who is advising you on how to navigate this. And it makes this session really interesting for me, primarily because at Edelman, we believe, being in a marketing comms business, we are kind of sitting at the cusp of how platforms, business owners, and media agencies are planning and working towards collaborating to coexist. And I think that's why, keeping that in mind, we've got a stellar line of panelists that I'm going to introduce you to. And as I introduce them, they would probably take a minute to share their expectations of how, what excites them about this session and how they plan to put across a point of view. So without further ado, let me start with Ruben. Ruben is the Chief Executive Officer for Atlas Vending. I think Ruben needs no introduction. He's someone, a marketer, who has given us some really memorable campaigns like the Wanda Coffee, Good Day, and a few others. He was adjudged as the CMO of the year 2018. And in his new position, he promises to continue innovating in a big manner. So Ruben, welcome aboard, and happy to have you on this panel this morning. May I request you to switch on your camera, please, and give us a perspective on what are you expecting from this session?
Good morning, Salesh. Morning, everyone. Pleasure to meet you once again. Firstly, thank you very much, Marketing Magazine, Ham, Vasuki, for having me on board again. From an expectation standpoint, I think we've got a very well-rounded, balanced panelists covering both PR, media, digital, and I, of course, represent the advertisers' client side. I think it's what I expect is actually to put everything out, no holds barred, share some viewpoints from every single perspective that we have here, one that would actually benefit us as well as those watching the session.
Absolutely. So while the client is in, we can't keep the client waiting. Let's call in the agencies now. So I'll invite Sheila. Sheila is the managing director for M6, a trained professional when it comes to counseling senior clients. Sheila comes with a body of experience and reputation of counseling clients across industries. And Sheila is going to weigh in with the media partner perspective in terms of the challenges one faces. So morning, Sheila, and happy to have you here. So what brings you this morning to this panel?
Firstly, I would like to thank Ham and the Marketing Magazine for giving me the opportunity. And for me, I'm actually very excited to meet all the industry friends, actually. You know how deprived we are these days to even have conversations, right? We are so caught up with what we are doing. And I've gone through the conversations that we are going to have and the type of questions that you're going to put forward to the panelists. And I think not only the audience are going to benefit from this, I think even I am going to personally benefit from the kind of conversations that we're going to have today. So I'm really looking forward to this session today.
Brilliant. Let's get Dheeraj in. Dheeraj is he's someone who has seen a lot of spectrum across, from being an entrepreneur all the way to managing one of the largest integrated comms companies in Malaysia. He's the managing director for Mindshare in Malaysia. Dheeraj, welcome, and share with us what is your expectation from this huddle that we're doing today.
Thanks, Alesh, and really excited to be here. And I also, first of all, want to thank Ham and Marketing Magazine for this great opportunity. I know this was supposed to happen face-to-face, and even though that couldn't happen, I think this is a absolutely great, agile way from the Marketing Magazine to at least pull it together, even though virtually. So great stuff there. Well, I'm excited about this because I think we are right now at a great place to reflect upon all that we have done this year, even though I don't even still remember how this year went by. I just thought we just celebrated 31st December 2019 like last night. So I'm excited because this is absolutely the time when we are all planning towards 2021. And I think it's a great time to kind of reflect and talk to the industry, and great part that we have clients here, we have media partners here, we have agency partners here. So I think it's a great time to kind of talk about what would make a meaningful relationship out of these partnerships, going into 2021 and beyond. That's what I'm excited about.
Great. And last but not the least, I think we cannot have this party going without the platform owners. So I would call upon Nicholas. Nicholas represents Media Prima. we all know and love the Rev brands, and they keep revving us with new innovations. And Nicholas, incidentally, also represents the industry body, Malaysia Digital Association. So we are hoping to have a holistic perspective from the platform owner's perspective, because we need to have this quadrant work together. Nicholas, your views.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Really thank you for inviting us to, again, like everyone else, we've been doing so many e-seminar, webinar over the last course of six months. And it's really good to have time to have conversation. I hope a real conversation to sort of like plan us in 2021. The new normal, I suppose, going to be the 2021 year. We've been going through quite a lot, and we're still going quite a lot as an industry. We at Rev Media and also as an industry overall in the MPA, we've seen a lot of impact of the MCO, the COVID to businesses. And I hope some of this conversation we have today and really be able to collaborate, really moving forward through this trying time.
Absolutely. So let's get down to business. I think we, in the interest of time, what we'll do is just a couple of housekeeping rules. Primarily, I'll start with a question to a panelist, and we would then seek reactions from fellow panelists. At no point, if you feel that there's something that needs to be added to the conversation, let's keep it fluid. Let it keep it easy and casual. I think, as Sheila rightly said, we're all here to learn and more a brainstorm, because we're all navigating through this unprecedented times. We've seen challenges coming our way. So I'll start with the first question that always, in the right social spirit, what's the relationship status? And I would invite Ruben to give a perspective on, how has, from a client perspective, things changed when it comes to leveraging platform strategies, the expectations that you have today from service providers, whether it's a platform, whether it's media agencies. We've seen in recent times clients looking at, beefing up their own internal comms team in-house, as we call that. And a lot of changes happening. While we all look at shaping this future together, it's as pertinent that if we hear a client's perspective on how you see things from your perspective, and then I'll invite fellow panelists to react. Over to you, Ruben.
Thanks, Anish. I think now, from a business perspective, one thing is evident. Every year, targets go up, and every year, profit expectation goes up. And this is a case true to any business.
Right.
Happens. When you're working with the marketing department, the expectation then is you have better reach, your cost becomes lower, etc., etc. Now, these expectations, realistic or unrealistic, eventually gets channeled down to the media agency, which eventually gets channeled down to the media owner. It is a funnel that is not sustainable. It had worked in the past. It worked really well when cost of advertising was substantially higher. And as time goes, many of these media entities have actually fattened themselves from a resource standpoint. So it becomes more and more unsustainable. Now, the other thing that also happens is the lines that actually exist begin to blur. Why you would need a media agency many years ago, basically, analytics could be one. I think Sheila probably would know at the time when Nielsen didn't exist. Nielsen was a thick book, right? You had to actually go through one by one. There was no real systems for it. So analytics would have been one. Some agencies actually had the bandwidth in terms of how much media they buy, and therefore command better rates. All these things begin to go away as reach, the GRPs, CPRPs, everything begins to drop given the shift in media consumption. Now that begins to encourage very different behaviors. And these behaviors now realistically hang on to 2 points: objective and subjective. Subjective one is relationship. Now let's admit a lot of these transactions are highly relationship based. And then there's the objective part, which comes with analytics. Now, most media owners, Nick is also here, platform owners, they have their own analytics team already. So it actually allows you to go directly now. So from an expectation standpoint, if you have a media agency in between, they need to be adding a certain value that the media owners cannot add. Some variant, some change. Otherwise, it becomes a non-sustainable cost discussion.
Right. But do you see that, how everyone has responded differently to this unprecedented situation? Do you see a change coming in terms of how media owners and media agencies have stepped up their game in terms of responding to the challenges that your business might be facing in these unprecedented times?
I would say a yes. Yes, for sure. Now, everybody's stepping up the game. Now, the reasons are multitude, right? Number one, people begin to get concerned whether they're going to have a job. Now, individually, the employees' behavior also begin to change, right? They begin to realize that if you were slacking, now you probably step it up a little bit. The second part is I take MCO, for example. During MCO, the predictability of people's behavior becomes a lot higher. They are basically at home. You don't have to really take much of a guess, right?
Right.
And when that increases, the chance of actually targeting them becomes a lot higher. So I think a lot of media agencies actually taken full advantage of that. However, many advertisers become a little paranoid with the situation and start holding back spend. So it was actually a point where you should have actually gone out and spent. You want to reach people, you want to get to know, you want to get to people, you want to send a certain message. It was that one point where you knew exactly where they were. They were at home. But because of the uncertainty in terms of purchase, then the confidence of whether my dollars in advertising is going to translate back to sales, people start pulling back the spend. So I guess that's what it is. So while media agencies were ramping up, many advertisers were not confident enough.
Right. Let's get Nicholas to respond to this in terms of how they see an evolution happening when it comes to responding to these unprecedented times and client expectations, as Ruben was mentioning.
I think there was I agree with Ruben. I think there was a lot of worried during the COVID time, MCO time, even throughout the RMCO was implemented. Right, there were a lot of worried by clients who are not ready to going digital. Right, even though everyone talks about digital transformation, right? But really, this time of pandemic really tested and see who was ready to really moving their sort of operation out from the norm, right, and moving into digital and creating sort of like thinking a lot more touch point than the usual the stuff that they've been doing for many years, right? So we've seen clients who are really innovative in a way, like pushing the boundaries, like the e-commerce guys, like the telco guys are really pushing boundaries. But then you have a lot of other clients that are actually like, well, maybe I'll just wait. And you know how long we waited for that, right? We waited for 2 weeks, and we waited for another 2 weeks, and another 1 month, another 1 month, right? And it just going on and on. And at the end, a lot of the clients that we've seen have really, just not doing anything, right? A lot of them were just doing branding purposes just to be there in the face. Now, from the media owner point of view, this is really, really challenging because we had like a really good problem, really. So one problem and one good thing, because there were a lot of people on the platform, right? Throughout the entire MCO time, even until now, traffic has really gone up to almost 30 to, at time 40% up, across the platform. We haven't seen I haven't seen before like people watching TV like how we're watching TV now, like Bulletin Utama, which is our the Media Prima Group, primetime news. We were doing about 1.2 million reach at certain time, but during the MCO at the peak of CMO, we actually hit almost 4 million, right? And it's just people were there, and even on our websites, right? We'll see, on our YouTube channel, watching news, reading news, and just interacting with a lot of our games and stuff, right? We've seen numbers of the roof, right? But then we went back to the market and said, there were not a lot of, there were a lot of, pull back, so we were a bit disappointed on that. But yeah, in general, I think the market needs to be a bit more brave in adopting this new norm. And I know, like what Ruben said, everyone has got target, everyone has got, that extra margin that we need to do every time there's a business planning. But at the end of the day, this is the really time to try something new, and the consumers are at home. Like in the last 2 weeks, we've been at home and sitting down and really figuring out how to target them at home and when they're interacting with media platform like we have.
Right. Let's get Sheila in and try and understand if the client is always right in terms of how we are assessing the situation. We are reading it from the other side of the table. Sheila?
Okay. You see, every single marketing director that I have been engaging with have said this to me. They basically said, hey, whatever we have planned in terms of our marketing strategy and go-to-market strategy has to go out of the window now. We have to rethink and we have got to reimagine how we're going to actually chart. And everyone is in survival mode. I mean, if I may say, be it agency, be it clients, be it media partners, we are all on survival mode. And like Ruben said, even though we are in survival mode, and even though this is a world pandemic, the expectation has not changed. Businesses are still expecting, agencies still have to show growth. Clients will still have to show growth. Platform owners, you still have to do better than what was last year. I mean, we are all in this together, right? So that's the reason why I say survival mode. And if you look at in terms of like what Ruben rightly said, right? I mean, why are we holding back? Because if there's one opportunity for us to actually get the target audience eyeballs, it will be the in-home media, because everyone else were actually glued on to multiple screen within the home confinement, but there's opportunities for brands to actually connect, right? So, so I concur with that. What I would actually like to say is, whether it's media owner, whether it's agency, I think more so than ever before, we need each other now, right? We need each other now, and our way of looking at moving forward is really building the strong partnership. And to Ruben's point, Ruben, I have to quote you because you're the only client here, So, to Ruben's point, he's absolutely right. So what new value are agencies bringing to the table, right? Whether you talk about costs, whether you talk about CPRP, whether you talk about analytics, the direct relationship with media partners, they are delivering that too. So what is our role? So really, for us, it's just not now. If anything, the pandemic has actually kind of like speed up things for us. But we have to look at we have to review the model of how we engage with clients and what do we bring to the equation. And this has to go beyond just rates and analytics. I know many clients have actually moved their planning and buying function, creative functions in-house. Clients are engaging directly with media owners, but that is not their primary function. That's a supplementary function, right? Whereas agency survival is based on, of course, essentially it goes out to media buying, but there are many other routes that we have actually created to be relevant, to be in business, and to future-proof ourselves as well. When I say future-proof, I don't mean like 5-10 years from now. At least we look at it the next 3 years. What is it that we are going to do and how are we going to be relevant to our clients' business? So basically, that's my point of view.
Thanks, Sheila. I think we should, on that point, you said something very interesting. We're all in the survival mode and we all need to peacefully coexist. We need to find answers to things that we were not taught. They still don't teach that at Harvard in a lot of ways. And I'll bring in Dheeraj now to weigh in on the aspect of, yes, we all have that realization, but what are the stumbling blocks from a service provider perspective that you envision, knowing that both client platform owners as well as us, we're all in the same boat right now trying to figure out what's next. From your perspective, what has been the hurdle or would continue to be hurdles or stumbling blocks? Dheeraj?
Sure. See, I have a personal point of view, and I'm pretty sure most of us might agree with it, that in the last 9-10 months, at least from the time COVID has started, and there has been so much of uncertainty in the whole marketing ecosystem. I think the relationship between clients, media agencies, and platform owners has actually gone stronger than it was before. That's what I personally believe. Because if you see in the last 8 to 9 months, even though maybe there were times when we were not spending, the media spends were off, and clients' budgets were kind of frozen for a while, but everybody was working. Everybody was working because people were planning and replanning and refocusing and reforecasting. I don't even remember the number of reforecasts we would have done for 2020 this year from the point of view, and not just for our business, but for our clients as well, right? So I think what has happened in this entire 8-9 months, at least this is what I believe from our agency perspective, from a group of agencies perspective, is that the relationship with clients has definitely gone more stronger, because this has given an opportunity, as Sheila was mentioning, to agency partners to actually step up from the regular day-to-day media planning and buying function, but to come in on board as actual consultants on big business, right? So if you look at in the last 7-8 months, what were marketers most worried about? Marketers were worried about, how do I continue my relentless focus on growth? Because as Ruben was saying, whether you are on MCO or CMCO or an RNCO, the targets don't go down. The profit expectations of the businesses go down, because that's how the businesses work, right? And economy has to, at the end of the day, thrive, right? We are all, as part of our own way, contributing to that economy. So therefore, that has to continue. So clients were focusing so much on, how do I keep my focus on growth intact? And by the way, remember, we walked into 2020 from a 2019 where a lot of focus in Malaysia was on accelerating the digital transformation. A lot of clients last year were talking about, how do I digitally transform myself? How do I do it at scale? So they already had a huge burden of actually executing that digital transformation. And now there was a point of COVID where we had to recalibrate ourselves. I think it gave an opportunity to everybody in the ecosystem to come together. I still remember when MCO started, how a lot of platform owners, whether that was Media Prima, Astro, Googles, and Facebooks of the world, came forward and said, hey, here are the trends which we think are going to shape up in the next 3-4 months. There was a lot of proactive thinking and proactive support that was being provided by platform owners, a lot of consultation work that was done by media agencies, and there was a lot of appreciation on the part of client side of all that work that was happening. So I have seen a complete pivot happening in this relationship, honestly, in the last 8-9 months. Now, if you talk about stumbling blocks, there obviously are certain stumbling blocks. Most of the times, they stay true to whatever probably time you talk about them, right? And I think the biggest stumbling block always has been the fact that there has been a lot of, I think, unconscious silos which always get created in this ecosystem, right? The silo of the fact that, oh, this is a platform owner, this is a media agency partner, this is a client. Whereas I don't think we do enough to rise above all this and look at this as one marketing ecosystem and something that has to kind of prevail together, right? I think that all remains to be the stumbling block. And that kind of consciously needs to be kind of removed. And I think it will take a lot from leaders like us to do that and walk the talk when we all talk like one marketing ecosystem. I think that's the biggest stumbling block, I would say, to look at this entire space as one ecosystem where we have to coexist rather than compete and try and create those unnecessary monsters of competition in our own heads, which honestly, when it comes to day-to-day work, doesn't actually exist, right? All clients care about is, can you help me deliver growth on my business? Can you be my best business partner? Can you help me, reach to my consumers in the most efficient and the most effective way? I think we just need to keep focusing on that, and that's really what kind of needs to be looked at.
Right. I think you touched upon something very interesting, that the stumbling blocks reside within our own psyche in that sense, and we're all responding to something bigger. But I think that also brings me to a very interesting question, which I thought is from a communication lens, is it a behavior change exercise, or it's a momentary bonhomie of that we need to be together? So let's hear from Ruben, how he feels that are things going to change from where we are in terms of our relationship status, or it's going to be a COVID effect that fizzles out, hopefully, once the vaccine kicks in? Ruben?
Hey, thanks. My view is that COVID has, well, it has changed some behaviors for sure. It has changed lifestyle. But when it comes to such shift into technology, for example, it has only accelerated the change. Some of these change were already happening. They're not really that new. COVID has forced it. Now, for example, if you take me as a user, I never wanted to use an e-wallet. I never did, right? So for whatever reason, despite being literal and knowing that it's safe and all that, I was one of those who would not. Now, thanks to COVID, I use it. And after using it, okay, not too bad. And I've actually switched into it. So it has actually accelerated certain behavior. But if you were to ask me from a relationship standpoint, this client, media agency and platform owner relationship, I would still, it is my personal view, of course. I'm not sure if everyone agrees to it. It is built on a string that's non-sustainable. And this is further proven. And if you see, I think Salish, you said at the beginning, there's a lot more advertisers or companies that are creating their own comms team internally. Now that's happening. You see a lot of media agencies starting up creative wings under them. They begin to move into creative media. They begin to reposition themselves sort of. Many agencies that could sustain solely doing media buying have now shifted out of it. It is an awareness that this is actually not totally sustainable. Then you find creative agencies saying that, oh, by the way, we have a digital wing. We are also doing this now. The whole idea of people branching out is subconsciously an understanding even within themselves that the current ecosystem is non-sustainable. And the financial modules packed behind it is also non-sustainable. It is therefore inevitable that this is going to change. And it may change to multiple permutations. You would find certain, now if you take if I was a Lazada or a Grab, for example, I am an advertiser, I am a platform owner as well. We are both. Lazada is an advertiser, they're a platform owner, so is Grab. Now, many large advertisers are beginning to be in few places together. So it is going to change, but it of course has a lot to do with how the industry is moving along with it.
Right.
Just add on to that. I think when Diraj is talking about collaborative or doing things together, right? I think that's pretty much one of the things that for a media owner like us, I've been really struggling with, right? Because we are sort of like right at the bottom of the funnel of everything is happening. And last night I was just texting all our head of sales, what you guys wanted to say during the session, right? So one thing that really came out of the feedback that I got was that like collaborative in understanding the platform, right? Because really one of the things that I'm one of my role in the group is through looking at innovative things to do for the group, right? And there are esports, there are apps and games and stuff. One of the challenges is always we platforms are getting to be a lot of the clients and agencies unfortunately assume on us, right? When we all go out and present about data analytics, for example, right? It was the first thing. Sometimes I get into even big agency, right? They will say, "Oh, you have that? My goodness, I have it for like 5 years now. I'm collecting data and I'm actually giving segmentation of audience, going out and really building really good traction of my understanding of my audience, right?" So something that like a lot of assumption that's happening with on the platform, which is I'm not sure what that's happening with Facebook and Google, but to the local platform like us, it's really a struggle for us. And when the assumption happens to platform like us, it gets even harder for us to actually push new innovation into the market, right? New product, new format. Let's not talk about metrics, right? Metrics probably like, all right, let's talk about the metrics now, Nicholas. Like when we talk about metrics, when we present metrics, I can see the client's agency are like zooming out, like la 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 la, and it will come back. I come back. Okay, we'll come back to you again, and we'll email this to you, and then the cycle goes in and out, right? Because we pride ourselves in really creating new product and new solution, right? But at the same time, it's very, very hard for us to go into the mind and in the whole ecosystem. But if it's like Ruben was saying, right? If this is like trading on a really thin line, I'm really afraid that when COVID are out the window, there's some sort of vaccine out the window, or like some some norm coming into the picture, right? The relationship sort of like fades away, right? And then everyone started to do their own thing, which is not sustainable for everyone, right? I really hear Ruben just said it was a lot of media player now. They have their own creative agency. Like, oh my goodness, you're like 200 people in the group. It's like, well, why are you doing this? We could give you the solution, right? And when recently we had a presentation with another agency, they were saying, oh, we had the solution. I was like, why do you have the solution? We can do it to you, right? We can do it for you. But then the similar answer came back. Oh, okay, I didn't know MediaPrima has that. I didn't know you're doing a digital solution, right? So I think it's chicken and egg thing. It's probably on our part as well that we didn't really market the product well into the market. But the challenging for us is to really having that assumption that media platform are not innovative enough at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. I think Ruben touched upon something interesting, and I was hoping our debate gets a little more fiery now, in the sense that the competition is inevitable, in that sense that everybody it's in survival mode, as Sheila mentioned, and the perspective that that's why this whole what we call the Stockholm syndrome, which primarily means that when you are in a situation of distress, the affinity grows stronger, but once it fizzles out, would there be a change for better? And I think the way we've been seeing it, and I'm sure our colleagues Dheeraj and Sheila would weigh in on this, that how while we are all planning to collaborate, there are times when we end up fighting against each other in terms of competition. The value prop changes because clients themselves are looking at engaging and hiring agents, an agency model within to look at things differently. So where does that take us? Sheila, love your views on that.
I'm going to be brutally honest, if you guys don't know.
We would love it.
Now, agencies' relationship with the client, it all starts with contract engagement. And our contract today is either it's going on a yearly basis, or at the longest, you have 2 years to be renewed. And then when the agency relationship contract get reviewed, then you get, a lot of other demands that comes with it. And one of the demand is definitely on cost, right? Now, cost will always be a question, irrespective whether you bring it in-house or you bring it keep it within the agency in terms of agency-client relationship. I think why cost is becoming something that is very subjective is because the whole industry can actually do it. If you can do it for 3%, I can do it for 1%, or I can do it for 0 cost. That is what is happening when you trade within the space of just media buying. Right? Like what Ruben also said, it's an unsustainable model when you talk about just media buying. So, and when you look at the relationship between a client and media owner is not a contractual relationship. Irrespective of who the agency is going to be, the client will always have a relationship with the media partners, right?
Right. And
the media partners will always have the relationship with the agency. Right? So that is an ongoing ecosystem here. So, but when you talk about in terms of the expectation out of the agency, it is also as much as in the agency's interest to look at new ways of working, new ways of thinking, coming up with new product. And creative is, doing creative in-house is very subjective for us. I mean, is my personal view. Again, if I'm going to eat into the territory of creative, why client go to us and say, okay, you can create a better content, is because we pack it up with all the insights and we pack it up with costs. And most often than not, why a client would go to a media agency to say, okay, please take it on and do the creative, is because it's cheap, much cheaper than the full-fledged creative agency, right? So that's just not, again, that may be working for now, but it will not work for a long time. So for us, sustainability and survival is a WIP. I would put it that way. Again, it is something that we are walking on an eggshell. Every year we got to review in terms of how are we going to make a difference in our clients' life. One of the things that is keeping most of our marketeers awake at night is more, besides Netflix, of course, it's really, where is my next sales going to come from? And
Right.
any agency that walks into the door and say, hey, Mr. Client, I can actually, look at your whole entire business. We understand your business, and where we think your next sale is going to come from is A, B, C, D, E. The client will sit up and listen. And that need not necessarily be just tied down to just media buying.
Right.
Yeah, that's my view.
Great. So bringing in Dheeraj on this, I think you mentioned, Dheeraj, about the fact that this year has been a year where we've been reevaluating, reforecasting multiple times, not just for ourselves, but for our client partners as well. Do you believe that this value prop that is expected out of us is still work in progress, or can we elevate? And I think you mentioned about playing the consultant role rather than answering the business as usual expectation. How has it changed from your perspective, and what's been your experience in terms of moving forward, things that we are going to do differently, which perhaps we've not seen in the past, or analytics is analytics for a lot of people as a currency, and as Nicholas mentioned, it's becoming more of a parity game there. How do you think the pivot is going to happen, Dheeraj?
Sure, yeah. Absolutely right point. And again, I'm a very big believer of the fact that, at least in the last few years, the way media agencies have been collaborating with clients, it has been, and as Sheila was mentioning, it has been way beyond just media buying and planning, honestly speaking. And at least in my experience, I can say that as well. And that reflects not just in the way our business is now structured. It also reflects in the way our people are structured, in the sense how we hire now. If you look at, again, talking from our own group's experience, I think in the last 2 years, almost around 20 to 25% of the people who we would have hired were actually not from media planning skills. They were from skill sets like e-commerce. They were from skill sets like data science. They were from skill sets like affiliate marketing. Skill sets like, I know we've hired people from the content and creative sides, right? So the reason we have done that is because, and remember, media agencies always reflect the structure of their clients who they work with and the needs that their clients have, right? We don't have the luxury of really creating a new arm just for the sake of it, right? We would always create that if there is a certain need that is coming from the clients. And the reason that has happened is because if you see in the last couple of years, there has been a lot of structural iterations that have happened on the advertiser side as well, right?
Right.
There is a huge, I would say, expectation that is coming on the integration of services. A lot of clients who we talk with talk about how do we integrate better together between creative media, social PR, influencer marketing, commerce, production, analytics, and all of that, right? That's a huge focus there. There's a lot of focus from a structural point of view of creating these specialist center of excellences, right? On the client side, you would have observed in the last couple of years, there's a lot of center of excellences which have come up around e-commerce, which have come up around digital transformation, or some of those things, right? So therefore, if you have as an agency to support that and to be the partner on that journey as well, you will have to bring in those skill sets. Just reach and frequency calculation is not going to help that, right? That's a hygiene for a media agency now. There are a lot of project squads which are getting created on the client and advertiser side on all these accelerated agendas that are getting created, right? So therefore, you need to reflect them as well. I think that's the reason that the conversation has gone beyond just the media planning and buying. And once again, I'll be very honest, it also does depend a lot on the advertiser and the client of how they want to engage their media agency partners. There are times when the relationship remains very transactional, which is basically, here is the brief, buy this media for me. All I want is great GRPs, lesser cost, right? And obviously the relationship just kind of stays there. But there are clients who involve agency partners, and I'm not just talking about media agencies, I'm talking about any agency partner in the whole business planning framework, right? They throw business challenges at you. They're like, my penetration is not growing in this particular product segment. How do you think we can basically work on that? And that's where the things start getting interesting, and the whole point of where you're talking about becoming a consultant to the client starts. To me, it has always and always started off from that brief that comes out from the client's, laptop or a desktop or a mobile phone. That kind of defines. And I think at the same time, yeah. And it then depends on how agency responds to that brief, right? We as an agency can always have this tendency to go back and just respond to the brief, right? You asked me this much, okay, this is what I'm giving you. Sure. But at the same time, we can go up and say, you know what, I don't just want to work on this. I want to work on your business problem and solve that. And to me, that's where most of the conversations have started happening, at least with the clients who we work with.
But do you see this also runs the risk of losing that symbiotic relationship? Because suddenly, media agencies, client side, even platforms are getting this multi-skill staffing done. Everybody is getting into that sea of sameness in terms of the specialization fizzles out over a period of time while we're all running to answer that.
Yeah.
How do we straddle that?
Yeah. So we have globally, we have been obviously having some of these discussions with some clients, like how Sheila was talking about. There has been in-housing has been a big in thing for quite some time now, and a lot of discussions happening around that. And what we have realized, at least as a network globally, regionally, and in this market, is that actually the question is not about in-housing. The question is about right housing. And that's what we have been kind of talking to our clients with. In fact, I can, in all transparency, without naming one of the clients who we were having this discussion with, they have been trying to build a data science capability internally. And right, for the last 2 years, they've been trying to do that. In fact, until in the last 2 years, I think they must have hired at least around 3 to 4 people. And the average duration they can retain this person in their company is not more than 3 to 4 months. And we were having a coffee chat, and there was this discussion that, hey, why is it so? Why am I not able to keep these people in? Because I have an ambition of building that practice internally, like how you're saying. And we realized that it's not just about hiring the people. It's also about giving them the right environment and right kind of a culture to thrive in that. Now, if you are in the business of manufacturing a certain product, a data science guy might find himself a bit difficult to kind of be in there, right? And that's right. What we realized. So one of the things which we did with that client is we started doing secondments with that client. We said, hey, why doesn't your data science people sit with our data analytics team, let's say, for example, 30-40% of the times in a month with us and do that? And once we started doing that, suddenly this person also started feeling a much different way. And it's not just about the client side, it happens in our agency side as well. If we hire somebody who comes from a very different skill set and we want that person to be and do just media planning, there is no way that you will be able to retain that person. So you need to just give that person the right environment to grow as well. And that's why we always talk about, I think the question is about right housing and not about in-housing.
Great.
I just added another buzzword into our life.
Absolutely. So on that right housing, let's bring Nicholas back into the house and try and see how at Media Prima, right housing is happening and all the expectations that clients have today from even platform owners. What's been your experience, Nicholas, in that?
I totally agree on the data science these guys, right? They don't really, they need to be occupied, all the time. We've had data scientists in our, little group over the past 5 years, and we've learned how to adopt and really keep them occupied and keep them excited about a lot of our products and creating new things, right? But I think this question of really having the right talent or expertise within agency or even client I think is a really good thing, right? Because the more you build capability to understand each other, the better that we can collaborate together, right? Because it's useless if the media guys come up with some solution of some sort of a data point where, the clients and agencies don't understand it at all, right? But it's really exciting because, we've seen a lot of the, the different sector of business has really invested in data, like banking, obviously the e-commerce guys, and it really gives us a lot of challenge, right, as a media owner, and figuring out what's the next thing that we need to be prepared for this type of client, right? For a client like, like an e-wallet, right? In the past, a group like Media Prima, we were not prepared to take on clients like this because, we were purely media, just feeding people information and giving them, keeping them entertained, right? But then as we move forward, as we think about, how can we link the user together and really track where they are and what they're doing, right? And realizing as a media, as a multimedia owner, right, we could actually connect all our data together and really, when we go out to the market, we can say, hey, all our 15 million audience now, they are all connected, and let's do something together, right? That's something that, as a media group, we've really, strive to recreate, re-look at where the demand will come from client. And of course, when the agency comes into the picture as well, they've already sort of have an idea of, what do the client want. But yeah, really, it's really figuring out, what the next steps for, what we can offer for the client's product, right? It's really, they've been big in our thought process as we innovate. And also the other one is looking at new segment, right? As you know, we've been acquiring or been licensing a lot of new product, and because maybe we just realized that, we have to be at every touch point, where the audience are, right? Whether they are, 18 years old, all the way to, 70, whatever it is, right? So we've been actually building a lot of segmentation of our audience just to get the reach of this, to reach this sort of segment where the client want. And then this is going back to, what do we think the client would need, right, for their product, and not really like forcing it through. Like, in the past we would have one big product and we'll just push it out to agency and client, but that doesn't work anymore, right? A lot of thought processing, like we want the right audience, right content, right? So then we have like a sort of build a big, a stack of product, right? From news, lifestyle, businesses, and then we get the audiences sort of coming in to interact with a lot of the things that we're trying to push out. Yeah.
Right. So I think we're at a stage where we really need to zoom in on two interesting perspectives here, where one is the client expectation moving forward more so, not so much retrospective. And the other debatable aspect, which we keep hearing, is measurement. What is the right measurement? Efficacy story, which always has been, kind of unnerving for all of us, given the different expectations, sets, and measurements. So let's hear from Ruben in terms of, dynamics have changed, and as Dheeraj rightly said, it's not about reach, frequency, and engagement per se only. What's your take on what would really work in building a more interesting and a more deeper relationship between a client, agency, and a platform, from both answering the expectations that you have moving forward and from a measurement perspective? Ruben?
Salish, I think this requires a huge holistic change. Before I jump into that, I just want to share something. When Dheeraj was speaking just now about the data scientists, I very well related to it. I started my career at a radio station a year and a half, and I was with NTV7 after that. Nick was my colleague. We started working there together. And then I moved into Pemanis, which was an FMCG company, which is it was what Etika was called before. I spent after my first month, I actually hated it. And for the remaining 5 months, if I got 50 emails a day, 25 of them came from Lina. Lina works for Job Street. I was actually looking for a job every other day. It is just that a corporate environment was just very different. I just found it hard to adjust. Now, fortunately for me, nobody offered me a job, and so I stick down, and eventually I adapted and things went fine. But the environment of what an agency office is able to offer is very different from most corporate offices. Corporate offices, of course, attempt to replicate that, but it is different because even the leaderships are different. And many of the leaderships in agencies grew in that environment, and therefore they've adapted to such environment. So cultural change, not so easy. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Sure.
Now, coming back to measurements, Ganesh, I think it's got to do with, even before you go to the media owner and the agency, it actually starts off with the advertisers themselves. It is the expectation how they are being measured. Now, so for example, in many organizations, the marketing department is from the onset measured based on GRPs, measured based on reach, measured based on certain numbers, right? Now, these may or may be directly correlated to the sales numbers. So what you would find internally is you would find this discussions where sales and shares go down, and then the sales director says, yeah, but the marketing campaign wasn't good. And then the marketing guy says, yeah, sure, but I've met all these GRPs. It's all been there. So the way in which organizations measure the marketer, that has to change. That at the forefront has to change. Now, the other thing that I in my view, that actually curtails creativity and innovation. So one is at the advertiser, the other one is at the media owner, right? And why I say the media owner, every other media owner comes back and says that, we want to be creative. We want to sell new stuff, new horizon. In every media company that I've worked, while it is what is said and while it is what is being preached, but down the line, the salesperson that go out, their commission is based on selling a full page, full color print ad, right? Or selling X amount of TV spots. Now, if I was a salesperson, between selling a full page, full color print ad and coming up with an innovative way of advertising on print, which would bring me production headache, where my media money now goes into production, where I won't get an incentive out of it, naturally I'm going to be skewed towards selling conventional advertising. So
right.
One idea at media owner side is to push such creativity and innovation. It is not cascaded down there. So I really think, and this is a sandwich, right? The issue in this, A, measurement, B, creativity, is not at the agency side. It is at the advertiser and at the media owner side. If we address these two, then the rest will flow through very well.
Right. I think also, if I were to add one more dimension, I think the rules of engagement per se has changed. The currency we deal in terms of beyond platforms, more the content and engagement part of things. Do you see a change coming there from your service provider's perspective?
Sorry, I probably didn't get that very clearly.
Sure. No, I was just trying to add another dimension to the mix from a performance perspective, where it's also a factor of what's your go-to market, what's that engagement and content strategy that would really become a more effective, impactful performance marketing perspective. So from that angle, do you see there's something coming from as a proactive measure? Because we've spoken about analytics, we've spoken about reach and other legacy, as I would call them, legacy measurement indexes. Has the way we look at going to market, because COVID has changed the way we go to market today, that mix itself is a lot of unlearning to relearn kind of thing. From that perspective, what's been your take? Because an FMCG player, typically, if I'm not driving daily from office to home and vice versa, my opportunity or window of opportunity is primarily at where I am stationed. So has that changed as well?
I would think that, as I said earlier, it has been changing. It has been changing. What this has done now is to accelerate the change. Now, from a measurement standpoint, I think we are the best position that we've ever been. Now, if you look at radio listenership or TV audience viewership, they were all done based on a certain statistics, right? Today, you could have exact number of how many people listening to Spotify. You know exactly who they are. So the measurement is actually very, very clear. It's becoming a lot more clearer. Now, secondly, from a transaction standpoint, now for the last 2 to 3 years, the first question, or one of the biggest questions that's being asked is, what's your e-commerce strategy? Everybody's talking about e-commerce. How are you selling it? And as and when e-commerce starts getting bigger and bigger, now the entire chain gets connected very nicely. You know where they actually consumed the ad or where they actually knew about it, because largely they're going to find out from an online source and directly connect it to their purchase behavior. And data is actually so much more richer now, that's for sure. Now, the two stumbling blocks, however, is of course purchase behavioral pattern. Now, Malaysia, for example, is not fully mature in that sense yet. And second is logistics. So for example, while now for an FMCG company, you take a can of Pepsi, buying a can of Pepsi would be RM1.50, but for me to deliver it may cost me another RM2, making it completely nonsensible. So if we fix the logistic part and behavior changes, I would think from a media measurement standpoint and media engagement standpoint, thanks to technology, we are the best possible place we've ever been.
Right.
I would completely agree with Ruben in there. I think from a measurement standpoint, at least from a digital aspect, and I believe most of the media is now turning digital, right? We are at the best point of how we can measure. In fact, if you see now, some of the digital metrics or some of the digital channels, like for example, influencer marketing, which until now was purely being used from an engagement metric point of view, or we would only look at how many followers somebody has even that has moved to an outcome-based model now, where you are now basically saying, hey, I will only engage with a particular influencer if I get a certain business or brand outcome, whether that's awareness, engagement, trials or stuff and all that, right? So I think we have moved considerably. A big stumbling block, by the way, where I think all of us have to be responsible as an industry is still that unification of the video measurement, which has not happened here at all yet, right? The unification of what happens on TV, because we talk so much about cross-screen video planning, but there is no way to measure a cross-screen video planning yet. And I think it's a shame in a market like Malaysia, where it's so heavily digitally advanced. I think that's something as an industry we need to solve for very, very urgently. To me, that would be the biggest stumbling block. But I completely agree with Ruben. I think we are in the best stage to now measure, at least until the last mile of consumer engagement, the effect and impact of a media delivery. Yeah.
Right, Dheeraj. So Ruben, one more question back to you in terms of expectations from your media partners and platform partners. How has it changed for you?
Some part of it is the same. Like Sheila very rightfully pointed out. So unfortunately, I mean, I don't agree with it. I think it's not sustainable. I don't even, taking myself out of the equation, I think this is, I said it from the beginning, it's a non-sustainable business model. But of course, on a year-to-year basis, unfortunately, we need to reach more people at a lower cost. It's just, now, but why is happening actually? I think, Sheila, you mentioned this also earlier. You see, consumers want something cheaper every year. They want more value every year. That doesn't change, right? But a can of Pepsi, I'm just going to use a can of Pepsi, for example. If it was 10 years ago, it was 150. Today, it's 150. It's not gone down to RM1. It's not gone down to 20 cents. Simply because we wouldn't go down after a certain point where we realize this is the cost of producing it. It's not going to go on yellow, we'll turn to red. So wouldn't our competitors. Therefore, the price gets held. Now, in a service industry, however, that changes. People value their time very differently. Right? If I'm going to sit down and give you an advice, and 10 years ago it was 10,000 ringgit, somebody else is doing 9,000, I'll say, fine, I'll do 8,000. So people begin to value their time very differently. And when that happens, that's why the media agencies actually get a little bit more squeezed, because it's not because you are wanting to do it, it's because somebody else is willing to bring their cost of time lower. Right? And if you ask me, I think the whole idea of leveraging on brand strength, and I know many marketers wouldn't agree with me on this, but leveraging on brand strength and staying dominant doesn't exist anymore. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, the color of your Pantone, the size of the logo becomes very important because you've actually invested. Advertising is expensive, and therefore people continue to buy the product for a certain reason. Building a brand today is not as complex as it was before. I mean, idea-wise it is, but reach-wise it is not. Many people will just build a brand overnight. So if you ask me from an expectation standpoint, I think it is more for the media agencies or platform owners to understand the business. The gap we have today is many advertisers do not understand the media business. They act more like a procurement department more than anything else, right? You get a brief like, can you give me a launch plan? It just starts off that way. And then you get the launch plans, not so nice, not very creative, not very edgy. What is creative, you won't even know. What is edgy, you won't even know. You just linger around there with the person unable to explain or tell you what exactly you're thinking about. And it is for one reason, I pride in this. I've left my marketing team, but almost the entire team were actually from agency background. I think that agencies are the best training grounds. When you move into a corporate environment, You start by crunching numbers, pulling numbers, and eventually you become a product expert, sure, but you're not necessarily a communication expert, right?
Right.
And therefore, from a brief perspective, from you don't even know what you want. You know when you can't see a finish line, but you're asking a bunch of people to run a race, but you can't see the finish line. You see, so I guess if you ask me, many marketeers or the way they train the people that come in has to change. And media agencies probably need to, I don't know, holistically find a way of actually gazetting or valuing the time so it doesn't get continuously eroded, because it will kill the industry eventually.
Right.
And finally, the big piece here is the agencies and platform owners need to understand the business. A lot of times, the ideas are creative, but they do not understand the business. They don't know whether this can work or not, right? So you keep getting things like, run this contest and the winner will get a full year supply of Pepsi. Seriously, who on earth would want to drink full year supply of Pepsi? I mean,
that's not from Media Prima, right?
no. So, when you go and tell a guy, you get a full year supply of a shampoo. Yeah, sure. I mean, that doesn't even sound compelling. You're trying to please the advertiser more than creating something good for the consumer. So they need to understand the business.
One last thought on that. I think you touched upon understanding the business about 3-4 times. Do you feel that the pace of change at your end as a marketeer, as a business person, is it proportionate to the way media landscape is changing, the way media thinking is changing from an agency and a platform perspective? Or is it that agencies are playing a catch-up game because the way you have to respond to the situation has changed drastically? Is there a difference there or not?
Agencies are for sure not playing a catch-up game. Okay, because you see, even if you looked at it, they were already pushing for digital advertising even before digital advertising was right. When it was at its infancy stage, every agency will come and tell you, buy into digital. Of course, now from a P&L standpoint, selling digital is better for an agency. That's my thinking. I could be wrong, but agencies have been pushing digital way before. The issue really here is, one is to many advertisers, and I'm equally guilty of this, moving into a territory that's unknown. Now, I know if I put a billboard, I cannot, firstly, I won't go wrong, right? The management won't say, what have you done with $1 million? They say, you see billboard everywhere. Many of the management teams are not digital consumers, right? So if I went and advertise on Spotify or on Twitter, and since they're not consumers, they're going to say, you spend $1 million? Yeah, okay. And at best, I can just show a PowerPoint slide saying, yeah, I've got some digital ads here and there. Yeah, sure, but we don't see anything. Now, not only that, retailers and decision makers also don't see anything. So when you go and sell to the retailers, they have not seen anything. What have you done so far? No, we've not seen. So somewhere there's the gap in terms of expectation delivery from what the advertisers are trying to push. Secondly, from a media owner standpoint, and I say this, many employees within media owners, the mindsets are a little bit different, okay? You come at a point where everybody watches or listens to a certain radio channel or watches a certain TV channel or reads a certain newspaper. Many of the employees are of the mindset that they're still market leaders. They probably think that they're actually doing you a favor. They're very delusional about the fact that this media, they're actually getting eroded, and day by day, nobody's actually consuming this. So somewhere along the way, I don't think it's the agency that's playing the catch-up game. The catch-up game is being played, again, I call it the sandwich again. The burger, the patty looks pretty fine. It is the bread that has an issue. It's up and down a little bit.
Right. Nicholas, would you want to respond to that?
Yeah, Ruben used to work. We all used to work together in media, so he knows a lot of things happening in media. So I think, as he rightly said previously earlier, this is in the past, media company used to be fat, right? Sort of like right. There's a lot of resources that we built that we have in the background to just come up with a TV show, right? 5 years ago, we will probably need tens or 20s of even like 50 people are doing a TV show. But that has really changed, right? The industry has really changed with technology coming through. And also Ruben would rightly say, a lot of the service providers are coming to the market and just saying, hey, we can do cheaper, right? So media company like us, we are really forced to change, right? Forced to think about what else can we do? What else can we do different from what we're doing today? So for us, 4 years ago, when the group looked at innovation and looking at really accelerating our chart in this space, we looked at a company like MMC, right? Something that we will be competing with long term, and we acquired that business. And really, one thing we really did concentrate and put a lot of effort is really transferring that talent into the main group, right? And without disrupting the entire MMC culture, the business they've built over the past year. And then when throughout the entire process, when we realized, hey, actually, we can actually do this at a really low resources, right? And then we went and built a lot more product that we can actually use our existing services. Like, for example, today you could we use the same studio to shoot for a high-end production, right? But at the same time, our content team who are producing for sales, for example, uses the same studio and the same capability. And then we transferred the resources around and shuffled it around, and we realized actually we could compete this. But obviously, because it's a legacy business, right? It takes a lot of time and a lot of resources to change, and a lot of transformation words here and there, even on the walls and so forth, right? So we took it on ourselves to really spend a lot of time to really educate and really change the structure. And I think today, I'm really excited because I've been in the media business for almost 16 years now. This is probably the year that I've seen a lot of things change because, again, a force of transformation for all industry, right? We have actually merged our sales team now into one group called OMIA, right? Where we want to be able to provide solution across the board and really, smashing, debunking that bit where Ruben saying that, hey, the sales guy is going down, he's going to sell a TV spot, and who cares about digital, right? We've had that problem for many years, right? So now we've really put them together and say, hey, TV guys, you sell this, you also do this together, and you will get almost the same incentive, right? But again, unfortunately, we are a large group, right? It takes a lot of heart and mind to really change the process, and slowly we've seen changes, right? A lot of acceptance in terms of how we are pushing our media solution out has been really adopted by the guys on ground, which is really important as well, right? Because if you are a strategist, you sort of plan forward and then thinking about all this transformation. But if you're a guy who are on ground is really going in and out, talking to client, agency, it doesn't adopt this, right? And we also back to square one. But it's an evolving process. So hopefully, as you interact with the Red Media Group, Media Advisor Group as a whole, and obviously our Omnia team, a lot of you will be interacting with, they'll probably give you a lot more than they used to, being just able to push TV spots or even a newspaper page like Ruben was just saying just now. So yeah, short answer to that. We really try, and I think we learn over time. Unfortunately, we learn the hard way. And this new format we go out to market as a group, hopefully will sustain our the way that we work, and not being one of those problems like Ruben was saying at the bottom of the funnel, right? To make sure that we are there and continuously being a solution provider for clients and even agency.
Right. So Nicholas, on that note, do you see more collaborations coming your way with media specialist partners, or the competition is going to intensify in the sense that you would prefer to work closely with clients directly, or agencies would have a meaningful role to play because everybody is revving up in that manner?
I think it's still a space for us to collaborate together, right? Because the only reason, to be honest with you, the only reason sometimes a lot of the media guys are jumping to the client is because they don't trust the agency, right? And then especially when I talked about new format, right? New metrics, new product, right? When we cannot get through the agency and they're unable to communicate to the client, we get really frustrated. You can't imagine how frustrated it is for a product owner to hey, I've spent all my time to do this. and you cannot get the story through to your client, right? I give you a very good example, games. I've been doing games for the last 4 years with a lot of our product team here. And it's super engaging product, right? Some of our games, they get like 24 minutes of playtime in one session. And you will never get that into like, a standard, display ads, for example, right? It's an opportunity for client to put a product in, right? So when we go through agency and when we present it, sometimes when we present, right, I can see in the room, I can see who's zoning out, and I can see who's paying attention. A lot of people are paying attention are the head agency, right? They will ask a lot of questions, but then we do a lot of follow-up because it's a new metrics and it's very hard for everyone to sort of put in the template, I suppose, and it gets into lost in translation. But when we go out to the client realizes, hey, actually, this one works for me, right? Then that pattern of us going directly to the client starts to intensify, right? But then, obviously, because the planning is done by agency, we always get going back to the agency again, and we start to work. And I've worked in a project where we work with a client like 2 months, and we went to see the agency just because we want to get the media planning sorted out. The guy walked in and said, "You guys sorted out already? Okay, let's sign up and go out." And I was like, really, to me, because I spent a lot of time on the project, right? I was really, really upset for the fact that there was not a lot of input, but then there was just a couple of minutes he was there and then he walked out. And it is really happening with a lot of the campaign, a lot of product that has a lot of touch point, right? Because I agree. I mean, I totally understand. Sometimes a lot of the legacy things, even in media agency, they are all templated, right? To get around it, to create something new, it's always extra work that everyone has to put in. I understand that all together, and we try to make it work for our client agency in that way.
Right. So quick responses from Sheila, and then followed by Dheeraj on what Nicholas mentioned.
Well, I think, Nicholas, I share what you said. I mean, that has happened, and it still will continue to happen, provided, we actually really look at what exactly is going on in who are we giving the proposal to? Who are we assigning the task to? And as you know, in the talent scarce industry, you would be facing the same thing as well, right? The people that we hire, and the type of people that we hire, and the training that we provide, and and the kind of ownership that we expect them to take on. So there is a bit of a difference between media owners as well as planners, right? Media owners, they are hungry because the sale that they put on the table to the client gets signed off, and there is an incentive that goes with the sale that they've made. Whereas on the planner side, they will have to actually go through all that, they have got to make sure that it doesn't defy any logic, and there's got to be a lot of analysis of the paralysis to be done before they actually put the proposal in front of the client. So again, that's a speak to take the proposal to the client matters, like exactly what you say, right? That's one part of it. And many times we also get this feedback from platform owners that, my proposal got lost in translation. How is it that, I've sent the proposal to you, but it hasn't reached the client? It has taken a couple of weeks now. That also another a constant, what do you call that, script that we get from media owners. I get calls from media owners as well saying that, hey, can you look into this? I've given it to your team. It has not gone to the client yet. And I am in touch with the client, right? So these are some of the things that we see. But yeah, it's like I said, everything that we do, be it from talent's perspective, be it with the talent or the business, or how we run, the relationship between client, agency, platform owners, it is something that we have to improve day in, day out. What more now, right? So what I would actually would say is, in terms of the three partners, be it client, media owner, as well as agency. The agency and the media partner, the media platform owners, in this case, are working towards getting the business out of the client. That one single client that we all are aiming, because they hold the card, right? So long we work this relationship, we respect our boundaries and coexist in this ecosystem, then, we will be able to do a better job, I'm sure. And I do see that relationship working even much harder now compared to before. We have actually, there's a lot more empathy that is going on between platform owners as well as agency today, as I can see it, because we know, as I started off saying, that we are in a survival mode, right? So then going back to the client, as what the client have said, like what we touched upon, measurement. Not every proposal that you put out there can be measured directly. Some are qualitative, some are quantitative. But again, I would like to say, measure what matters the most. What matters? Measure what matters. We go on belaboring on GRP, reach, cost per reach, and what have you. But honestly, so what? So what to the consumer journey? So what to the customer journey who is going to land up in converting that particular customer to a sale to a client? So these are things that we've got to look at. And again, when we do it correctly, there will be cost implication as well. And to our only client on this forum, what I would like to say is, and to the clients who are also going to be audience, is that I started off by saying that probably we need to review in terms of how the agency model is going to work, right? Probably then the way how to work this better is incentivizing, because the clients, the marketing team's KPI would also then be tied back to the agency KPI. Say that, well, you're in with me, you are in this together with me. Let's put our mouth where the money is. And if we are in together, then, incentivize the agency with the kind of performance matrix that we put together. And then, we look at how do we move forward with this. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Sheila. I think in the interest of time, Dheeraj, we'd love to have a quick 2-minute perspective from you before we close the session.
No, absolutely. I think Sheila has spoken most points about from a media agency's point of view, but I would just like to touch upon 2 quick ones. One is that I think we need, first of all, we need, I completely agree that there are times when great ideas have not seen the light of the day. And there are multiple reasons, including the understanding from a media planners as well as the boldness of an advertiser to actually take those ideas and execute them, right? There have been multiple kind of reasons for that. But one thing I would really urge our media platform partners to do, and this is something I have been personally also speaking to a lot of people who I work with in a day-to-day ways. I think the media platform owners have to go beyond the day-to-day sales conversations to a more strategic solutioning conversation. I know we have created solutions teams, but honestly, still what we kind of get on a day-to-day basis is largely a sales pitch, right? And we have been mentioning this a lot of times, that media planning as a process is a process of rigor, right? There's a lot of rigor which goes into this process, which Sheila was talking about, right? And therefore, a media planner has to ensure that everything is kind of on rationale, it is delivering on certain KPIs and stuff. So which is why I think the best way to do this is that if media partners and agencies can work together from a more strategic point of view. For example, one of the things which we do is we run Purple Innovation Desk with some of our media innovation partners, where we don't just give them a business challenge, just a brief for a media campaign, but we throw the same business challenge which clients have thrown at us, right? And then we brainstorm together and we arrive at a certain idea. It will have to be absolutely led from an agency head point of view. This is something which has to be led and driven from a leadership point of view. But I think it will need equal investments from a media platform side as well to kind of think of this as a more strategic partner. And the only request I have for our clients, obviously Ruben is the only kind of client. Maybe all of us will have to go out and buy him a drink after this for representing such a large community and talking relentlessly for the last 1 hour, is that I think it's time. Maybe it was time 2 years back, but I think it is absolutely a huge, big time right now for us to be a little bit more bolder in our choices of how we do marketing. As a market, if there is one thing which I always feel that we could do more, it's about being a bit more bold when it comes to our own marketing choices, which we make at some point. At certain point of times, like Sheila said, a certain idea might not make sense purely from a reach point of view, but it delivers a great impact for your brand. it delivers a great kind of a share of voice for your brand, right? So, and I would love to see more innovation, first time innovations coming out of Malaysia, especially at the pivot we have done from an digital e-commerce point of view. And that's the only thing probably I would think we will have to work harder towards when it comes to 2021, because times have made us to become more bolder, whether we like it or not. We will have to do that.
Thank you, Dheeraj. I think that was a passionate account of what the challenge industry is facing. And I would like to thank all of the panel members, Ruben, Dheeraj, Sheila, Nicholas. I think it was an enlightening session, considering that we're all facing the same monster. We're going into the dark together. Yes, it's good to see that we're all collaborating, innovating, trying to hold each other's hand, but also it's evident that we still need to bridge that trust gap that often comes in the way of, as Dheeraj pointed out rightly, it's more psychological than actual. And we all have a role to play. And I think moving forward, we would look at more of these collaborations, some interesting perspectives that came out in terms of the right housing. I think that's a term that we all should lean in on and weigh in on. And thanks a lot for your time. And thank you for Ham and marketing team for having us here to share our views. All the best and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Sailesh, and all our panelists. Our panelists were actually asked to not shy away from addressing the elephant in the room, to initiate a necessary conversation. And I believe they did that. But I'd like to know what you guys think. So let us know your thoughts in the comment sections below. And this brings us to our last session of the day by none other than the Regional Director of Marketing for McDonald's Malaysia, Eugene Lee. Eugene needs no introduction, but I'm going to do one anyway. He was recently named one of Asia Pacific's top 50 most influential marketeers of 2020, and he was also Marketing Magazine's CMO of the Year in 2018. Starting at McDonald's Malaysia in 2009 as a marketing executive, Eugene rose pretty quickly through the ranks to becoming marketing director in 2016. Eugene transformed marketing at McDonald's and rolled out quite a number of groundbreaking campaigns, including the legendary Ayam Goreng McD relaunch, which still serves as a case study for many marketeers today. So off to Eugene whenever he's ready.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Eugene Lee, the Regional Director of Marketing for Asia at McDonald's. And today I'm here to talk to you about a topic that I'm really passionate about, right? And you can see it on the slide, is if you don't get it, don't get into it. And it's a funky title, but you probably understand it a lot more as I get into the slides. So not that long ago, when it came to media and marketing, I think things were a lot simpler than it is today. So just looking back into 2010, 10 years ago when I started work at McDonald's, we only had 4 major platforms that you were looking at with traditional media when it came to planning your marketing execution, right? You had TV, you had radio, you had press, and you had out of home. It was really simple conversations with the media agencies. I think, whenever we did something creative, it would be within these platforms. So things were a lot simpler, right, 10 years ago. But looking at today and moving into 2020 and the amount of digital disruption that we have, with digital media coming on board as a big part of the marketing and media mix today, something new is really popping up every single day, right? Apart from the big 4, which is your Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, you have a whole host of new things that are happening all over the place all the time. So, with the emergence of TikTok, you have Twitch coming in, you have Snapchat, and it just feels as a marketer that there's something new that you need to talk about every single day. And what's even more concerning is that because of these new platforms, the audience is really, really fragmented. So it's not like in the past where you would, if I wanted mass awareness, I would just go on TV and I would be able to reach, 70, 80% of the population. Today, despite having more accessibility, I think that digital has caused a huge fragmentation within the marketing space, right? So if I want to reach a user, that user might be on TikTok, that user might be on Facebook, that user might be on YouTube. So where do I go? So it's really become very complex, and the marketing function has to continuously evolve that way, right? And at every modern talk today that you go to, whether it's live, whether it's online, I think as marketers, the first thing that you're bombarded with is buzzwords, right? It's new things that are happening, and it's the latest, greatest, shiny thing. So there's something new that is coming at every single talk. Whether it's TikTok when it bursts onto the scene, whether esports and they're telling you that it's a $1 billion industry today, whether it's chatbots and it's the latest way to sort of interact with your consumers, or programmatic ads and what it really means, and the fastest and best way to reach your intended audience. There's really something new every single day. It's always the latest and greatest shiny thing. But what I'm here today to tell you is, if you really don't get it, the platform that they're selling, or the new shiny thing that they're putting in front of you, don't get into it. So that's really important, and it's something that is the theme throughout this entire presentation. So let me jump straight into it. And before you look at the latest thing that is coming out and being distracted by thinking that, TikTok is the latest hip thing, all the kids are on it, how do I jump onto it, and how do I get a head start on this platform? I think it's very important to take a step back first and to think about these three things, right? The first point that I really want to talk about is, do we understand the audience as the brand, as the marketer behind the scenes? Do we as the people going into it, do we understand the audience on this platform that we're going into? Take, for example, TikTok, right? Do we understand who these people are and what they're using the platform for? So I think that's a very important part, and it's the first question that we should always be asking ourselves. And again, this is a deep understanding of the audience and not just a very surface understanding of the audience. So that's very important to keep in mind. So that's the first thing that we should be thinking about as marketers. The second thing is, what is our purpose going onto the platform? So you've identified TikTok and you've identified this new platform that you want to be on. What is our purpose going onto that platform, and why are we actually using it? Is it just another media outlet? Is it just another media platform? Is it just another marketing tool that we're going to be using? What is that deeper purpose that we're going into it for? And the third part is, after understanding the purpose of going onto that platform, what is the strategy that we're going to have behind it, and what is the bigger overarching theme that we're going to go onto that platform with? And I'm just going to explain all these three things because I think it's very, very important through McDonald's examples, and you'll be able to see it come to life, as I talk through this. So the first example that I have here is actually Twitter. And so Twitter being one of those mass platforms, McDonald's was actually very, very late to the party. We didn't have a Twitter account until 2019, so early part of 2019. So we were extremely late to the party, and all the other brands were already on it. But I think we didn't have a strong enough purpose and a strong enough strategy to go onto the platform and to go onto Twitter. So that's why we held back all this time. And so when we finally decided to explore the platform, the first thing we asked ourselves was, do we really understand the audience, and do we really understand the people that are on Twitter, especially in Malaysia, right? So we did a deep dive into it. We were on Twitter every single day. We were actually, checking out what people were doing there. And what we found out was that first thing, in Malaysia, it's predominantly a mass Malay group of audience, right? Males, females, but it's really predominantly mass Malays. And you're looking at a younger age group, right? A younger group of audience that is using Twitter very frequently, and it's very sticky, right? And people are actually on Twitter every single day, having conversations, checking out what other people are doing. And the third thing that we really noticed is that on Twitter, because it's only text, right? Everything was done very conversationally. So the language that was used there was Bahasa WhatsApp. Right, so it's WhatsApp language. It's not formal. It's not corporate speak. It's very conversational. So I think that was something that we picked up, and we said, this has to be a big part of of our strategy moving forward. So after really understanding the audience and getting a deep understanding of that, we moved into crafting our purpose. And what is the purpose of us going onto the Twitter platform? Is it just going to be another media outlet? Is it just going to be another marketing platform for us? But we decided that with Twitter, what we really wanted to do, and our big purpose, was to connect with the young Malays, right? The young Malays in Malaysia, and to have a deep engagement with them on the platform. We set out right from the start that the whole purpose of us going onto the platform is to build affinity and not sell, right? We didn't want to go on there and say, hey, this is the latest burger from McDonald's. Here is the latest promotion that we're having. Come in and buy. We wanted to build an affinity and to drive a deep connection with the users that were on Twitter, and to connect with the young Malay audience. And something that we do internally a lot is that in terms of the purpose, we wanted to have a very clear outcome from the customers, and we want them to say something about us, right? And what do we want them to say is, McD ni cool juga, right? I mean, thinking about it on that platform, the stuff that they're doing, McD is really quite cool. And that's the bigger purpose behind it, right? That was in consumer speak and consumer language, that was what the outcome was supposed to be. So after understanding our purpose, after understanding our audience, we went ahead and crafted the strategy. And what was the strategy to get in to Twitter and to achieve that brand purpose, right? We knew very clearly that our strategy was to drive conversations and to get customers to engage with us with the brand. We wanted to build a persona that people actually wanted to follow, and not just another corporate account. So I think that was very key in terms of our strategy, that we were when we were planning it out, and we were thinking about how we were going to get onto the platform. The big strategy behind it is that it has to be like another KOL or another celebrity that people actually want to follow and actually engage with the brand, right, and drive conversations behind it. So having this very clear outlining framework, we went ahead and I'm just going to showcase what we did with Twitter. And this was our very first post, right? This was what we went onto the platform with, and you can see that it's from February 13, 2019, so very late to the party. And this was our very first post from McDonald's Malaysia in Malay language. Hai semua, saya budak baru. Dekat sini siapa yang pegang kawasan? So who's the boss here, right? Mohon tag. So what this resulted in was a big shock to the people on Twitter, right? Is this really, the buzz was going around, is this really McDonald's? Is this, another fake account? How can McDonald's, being such a big brand, be talking like this, right? Talking like a person and a character, so they were a little bit confused at first. I think a lot of people were wondering whether it was a fake account. But as time went on, and as we posted more and more, I think that's where we really started to gain traction, and people were realizing that, hey, this is actually the official account. And so, a month after that, we came in and we posted, and we had a lot of posts along the way, and this is just a month later, right? And we had this post which relates back to McDonald's, and it's Cahaya Pembayaran di counter McD. You either pay with cash, you either pay with your debit card, or you pay with a QR code, or very typical way, pakai duit ko dulu lah, nanti aku bayar balik. Right, so very typical stuff that you see, and it's just very fun, very conversational. And if you look at the exponential increase in retweets and engagements from the customers, we went from 18 in our first post for a retweet to 30,000 after that, right? And this is just in the short span of 1 month, because customers were starting to latch onto it, right? It started to become, hey, this McDonald's account is really cool. They're not posting anything to do with promotional items. They're not pushing us to buy a burger. They're just on there to have a conversation with us, and it was really fun, right? And it leads back to the purpose. And this was one of the last one of my favorite tweets that we put out there, right? It's asking why when a cat sleeps in the office, everyone says it's cute, but when I sleep in the office, my boss scolds me and asks me to think about the next tweet. And it built a persona, right? It built a person behind it. So instead of us being this big corporate brand and this big corporate, account where people are coming in to look for, official news and promotions and stuff like that. It became a person that people actually, a persona that people actually wanted to follow, right? And we did this back in 2019, and it was really successful in terms of us coming onto the platform. So again, doing all that is fine and dandy, but did we really meet our purpose and the purpose of driving engagement and really connecting with the Malay audience? So just to give you a few October snapshots of our competitors and their accounts. So if you look at the KFC account, and they joined in 2012, so April 2012, today in October, and this is a recent screenshot, they have about 50,000 followers, right, on their Twitter account. Looking at Domino's, and Domino's is probably one of those very active on social media brands as well. And if you look at their account, also in 2012, August 2012, and today they have about 37,000 followers. Looking at Nando's, right, another big social media brand in Malaysia, and they joined probably the earliest out of everyone. 10 years ago, almost 11 years now, January 2010. And today they have 20,000 followers in October. And if you look at McDonald's, and if you remember to what I spoke about earlier, we only started in January 2019, right? And today, just in the short span of 1.5, 2 years, we're already at 212,000 followers. So that's 4 times KFC. That is almost 10 times of Nando's. And this is really through the examples that I showed you earlier, right? That people follow personas and people follow brands because they actually find that they're cool, right? We really understood the audience. We really deep dive into understanding the people that we were talking to. We had a very, very clear purpose on what we wanted to achieve on the platform, and we executed it with a single-minded strategy. So you look at all the tweets just now, and if you go to our Twitter account today, you'll probably see the same thing. That kind of conversational tone and that kind of conversational approach that we had to it, and that really drove it, right? We were so late to the party, almost 7-8 years behind everyone else, but we came in and guns are blazing, and we managed to achieve 4 times the amount of followers than our nearest competitors. So that's a really good example of that all coming together. So you sort of get the idea of where I'm headed to with this. So moving on to another example, and the second McDonald's example is with esports, right? And with Twitch. So Twitch is a streaming platform that all these gamers, people can go on there and they can do live streaming, and they do live streaming for 2 to 3 hours on end. They have a bunch of followers that are watching them, and they usually stream it every single day. So just to give you an understanding of what Twitch is. And so the first thing that again, going back to that framework, is we needed to go in and understand the audience. And with Twitch, the main target audience there is a hardcore group of gamers. And these are not your casual gamers that are playing, normal mobile games on their phones, but these are people that are playing, their PlayStations, or they're playing, PC games, and they're really hardcore, right? They're really into the game that they're looking at. And it's predominantly males, right? I want to say like 98% of the viewers are actually males. It's a large community, and everyone is hearing today that esports is $1 billion industry. It's a super large community, but very close knit, right? So they are very defensive of their esports space, and they're really turned off by fake advertising, right? Whenever brands go in and they're in there just for advertising. Gamers and people in the esports scene, they can smell, well, for the lack of a better word, your bullshit if you're coming in as a big corporate brand. You're just trying to sell them something, and they can sniff that out, right? So it's extremely important to go into esports with a genuine approach. So what was our purpose of going and getting into esports, getting into the streaming platform? This was a lot more a business and sales driver and purpose versus the Twitter one, where it was all about building brand affinity, right? So it was, the purpose behind it was to increase top of mind and preference for McDelivery. So we had our McDelivery business and we wanted to grow that. And we saw that there was a strong synergy between McDelivery as a platform, as a brand, with esports and with gaming. So males aged 15 to 30. And going back to what we wanted consumers to say after seeing what we're doing on the platform is, we really wanted them to say that dah game 3 jam lapar ni, McD lah senang, right? So we wanted that to be top of mind for them, and that was like it again in conversational, true human customer language. What we wanted to come out of us getting into it. So what was the strategy, right? And what was our strategy going into the esports arena? We really wanted actual engagement. So real deep engagement. To my earlier point earlier, we didn't want to go in as a fake advertiser, and we didn't want to just go in as slapping a big product logo, product or logo placement there. Putting stuff in front of the consumer. Having our logo as big as possible. And we wanted to drive drew factor, right? So again, this was tied back to a more business purpose. So we wanted to drive drew factor, but not to hard sell to these to them, right? Not just putting products in front of them. So what did we do? Well, we started off with logo placement. We did have the McDelivery logo throughout the stream. So we actually picked the top 10 gamers in Malaysia with the biggest audience networks. Hundreds of thousands of followers that are watching them every single day. And so we had our McDelivery logo placement throughout their streams. Whenever they stream for 3 to 4 hours a day, McDelivery would be there. But again, going back to my earlier point, the strategy was not just logo placement, because it's very easy to just sponsor something and put the logo there. But what we wanted to do was to drive a deep engagement, right? So what we worked out with these streamers is we actually had them do live ordering. So it was something that we arranged with them, and twice a week. So every and it was up to the streamer, right? It could be every Tuesday and every Friday. Because they stream every single day, they would actually do live ordering, and they will go into the McDonald's McDelivery website, and they will actually sit there and interact with their viewers, right? Hey, what should I be eating today? Hey, what do you guys think? What is your favorite burger and stuff like that? And this was genuine because they are actually, thinking about what to order. And the best part of that is that it could be tied back with our promotional and tactical stuff. Let's say we launch a new burger. Let's say the samurai burger is just back. During that week, when they went into the website, they would actually be able to see the samurai burger there, and they would actually be asking their viewers, hey, have you guys tried the samurai burger? What do you guys think of it? Should I be ordering it today? Sedap or not? That kind of thing. And they would actually place their order live on in front of all their viewers. And once the food arrived, they would actually eat the food live in front of the camera. So eating their French fries, eating their burgers, eating their desserts and things like that. And it's a mukbang in front of their their thousands and thousands of viewers. And again, it drives that resonation and that connection with their viewers, because now these viewers are saying that, hey, this is genuine. My favorite streamer or my favorite gamer is he's really into McDonald's, and he really actually quite likes McDonald's, and he's genuinely enjoying it, eating in front of the camera. And I just challenge you to sit in front of the screen and watch someone eat McDonald's fries live in front of you. It's very difficult to resist, right? It's very, very difficult to resist wanting to order delivery immediately on the spot. So that was what we did. And so again, going back to, did we meet our purpose? And as compared to the Twitter one, the objectives here were a bit more tangible and a bit more measurable. So we increased our McDelivery top of mind with the target audience by 16 points, right? So that's a huge leap in just 1 year, right? And when we launched it during that year, we increased it by 16 points top of mind with that audience and with that gamer group. We also increased McDelivery preference, so their preference to order McDelivery. 9 points, and that speaks a lot when as a marketer, jumping brand scores and jumping brand preference and things like that, it's not as easy to move. It's not even easy to move it 1 or 2 points, less than that, jumping 9 points. And on top of that, we also managed to increase what made our bosses happy, which is McDelivery sales by 53%, right? So a huge incremental when it comes to the amount of sales that we drove through McDelivery, and our market share also grew. And this is total market share, right? McDelivery market share from 9% to 12%, and this was back in 2018, 2019. So moving that needle and getting into different segments and different groups. So yeah, so that was our success story, and the two very, very different objectives and very different purposes, but you can see how they all come together when you are very focused and very clear on what you want to do on the platform. So again, just going back to what we started off with, right? At every single modern talk today, you are going to be bombarded with buzzwords and the latest, greatest, shiny thing, right? As marketing people and as marketing leaders, that's just a fact. That there's going to be a new thing, and with the digital age, there's going to be a new thing that's coming out every single day, and we just have to be aware of that. But before you jump onto the latest shiny thing, again, just remember the three things that I talked about, right? The first thing is, do we understand the audience? And it's not just a very surface understanding of the audience, it's a very deep, very rich understanding of the audience, right? You have to understand their nuances, you have to understand what they like, what they don't like, you have to understand their language, you have to understand why they're actually on that platform and the purpose of them being on that platform. After really deeply understanding that, then you move on to the purpose of going onto it, which is number two, right? What is our purpose as a big brand, as a company going onto this platform? And a lot of the times, I'll tell you, it can't be purely just for sales, right? There has to be a deeper purpose behind it because, again, people on the platform, they're there for a reason. And if you're there just to stick an ad in front of them and just another media outlet, it's usually largely not going to work. And then so after understanding the audience and knowing what your purpose is going onto that platform, crafting a strategy, that is where the creative and the fun part comes in, right? Crafting a strategy that will really meet the purpose and always keeping the audience in mind when you're doing that. So that brings me to the end. Again, going back to the title, if you don't get it, don't get into it. And I can say very confidently because Twitter, we didn't get into it when we didn't understand it, right? It was starting to gain a lot of traction back in 2010, 2011. And you can see that, from my presentation earlier, that, all the bigger brands were already starting to get on there and we were very late to the party. But we decided to hold that off to come in a lot later because we really wanted to understand and have a deep understanding of the audience and have a purpose for it, right? If we were just going on there and we were just plastering ads again and again, I don't think it would have worked that well, and we'll have probably been in the same sort of region and of followers as all the other major QSR brands. So I think that's extremely important to keep in mind, and don't just jump onto the latest, greatest, shiny thing, that whoever comes and proposes to you. So that's it from me. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask them in the comments down below. I'll be sure to check in and to answer your questions if I can. So Vasuki, back over to you.
Well, there you have it. The second session of MMC Tuesday has come to an end. Before I log off for the day, I'd like to once again thank our presenting sponsor, Omnia, for supporting us as we embark on our first virtual conference. I'd also like to thank our media partners who have been with us throughout the years, specifically The Edge, Malaysia Kini, and BFM. And last but not least, thank you to our speakers and panelists for the day. For those of you who are still with us, don't forget to tune in for the third MMC Tuesday happening same time next week on 17 November. We've got Chief Strategy Officer of Omnia, Chris Wee, and our second panel session on content fashioning for the next decade. If you have any questions for our speakers or as organizers, just drop a comment below. Otherwise, have a good evening, everyone, and I'll see you again next Tuesday.